Okay, I think we're live. I have no idea how good the quality of this is or if you can hear me clearly or not. So, whoever is listening, give me a thumbs up or something. Let me know, give me some feedback. I wanted to start this stream by calling out some of the Flare validators who have not updated to the latest version of 1.13.0 of the Flare validator. So, four dads who've already responded to me: Flare Oracle, True FTSO, AF Oracle, Nauta. So, who else have we got here? Bunch of others. Mickey B. Fresh. Come on, man. You can do better. You can be better than that. You've got until the 17th of April, anyway, I think, to upgrade the Flare validator. So, with that out of the way, I fired up the stream simply to discuss some of the feedback that we've had on FIP 16, which has been amazing. We've had a good amount of feedback already. And I've had more time to digest the FIP and also the feedback from it. So let me see if I can get this. Hopefully that looks okay on the stream. Bear with me. I'm just going to try and get some feedback by looking at YouTube before I dive into this. Okay, I can hear myself and I'm getting feedback. That doesn't look too bad. All right. Darren was on, I think it was Flare Forward yesterday, and was making an awful lot of sense with this tweet, which I forgot to share and retweet. So I'm just going to read this out to refresh my memory of what he said, not just in the stream, but from his own words, because there was some really instructive stuff here. So let's jump in. First, the things that are right. The broad direction here is correct. Inflation that isn't backed by real economic activity is a tax on holders, and transitioning the network from inflationary wars toward organic yield driven by actual usage is the right long-term move. The FIRE mechanism is architecturally sound, aggregating protocol fees, FDC revenues, F-asset fees, and MEV into a single entity with a mandate to reduce supply and fund ecosystem growth. Can be a powerful system. The flywheel logic is real. More activity generates more revenue funds more incentives attract more activity. That's how you build a sustainable network economy instead of one that depends on token printing indefinitely. But obviously, I would like this idea since it mirrors the APY cloud in form and functions. So that's the APY cloud that is available on Enosis, pioneered by the Enosis team, Darren. The P-chain staking rebalance is also correct in principle. Locked stake provides more security than liquid delegation, and aligning rewards with that reality makes the network more resilient. The 20% minimum entity fee is a good floor, which prevents a race to the bottom on fees and protects the sustainability of providers and the entire network it depends upon. And the MEV capture proposal is genuinely differentiated. Other chains let MEV bleed to private extractors with zero benefit to the ecosystem. Redirecting it through a controlled block builder architecture back into FIRE is a meaningful structural advantage if executed well. Don't think anyone else is going anyone else is doing this at the network level. I certainly haven't seen anyone else doing this at the network level either. So yes, the vision is right, and even in this form, I think the FIP should pass. Vote it down entirely and lose real progress. However, I think there are gaps that need to be addressed openly, so here they are. And I think some of these are pretty insightful as well. The gas fee numbers could become an issue. Flare has gas spikes and they are not rare. The table shows a clean 0.00008 per simple transfer at the average baseline. During a spike, that number multiplies. For a user trying to manage a loan position, swap assets, or add or remove liquidity during a volatile market event, which is exactly when they are most desperate to get a transaction through, costs could become genuinely prohibitive relative to the transaction value. The proposal says governance will monitor and readjust, but gives no parameters for when that trigger kicks in and no emergency relief mechanism. For a network positioning itself as the home of retail XRP DeFi, that's a meaningful gap. And should the price of Flare appreciate in a meaningful way, this issue would only grow. Possibly, I think. I mean, these aren't really large gas fees. I get the spikes as well, for sure. Some real numbers would be helpful, but here's the thing. I think things are changing so quickly as well that I think it's absolutely right to point out that if like we're on historically low prices of Flare, frankly, and if the price of Flare goes up and the gas fee in terms of dollar value increases, I think these are legitimate concerns. My 2 pence is I would put them into these are good problems to have, and it's fine to deal with them later. And my theme throughout this, by the way, is going to be it's better to have forward progress. We just need forward progress. So these issues are valid. A lot of what Darren brings up is very carefully considered, obviously in OG in the community, obviously an individual that has profound level of experience in implementing and working in these kinds of technologies and financial environments. My biggest criticism of Darren's critiques itself is that we just need forward progress. Things need to move forward. I'm not saying trust the plan, Darren, by any stretch of the imagination. What I would say, though, is that maybe Songbird could play a far larger role in the way that you're describing how more consideration needs to be given to some of the critiques that you're raising. But let's move on. Fire needs real representation from day one, not eventually. The proposal says the Flare Foundation will, over time, put together a committee of members, both internal and external, to the foundation to manage Fire. That's it. That's the governance plan for an entity controlling MEV revenues, FDC fees, F-asset fees, and protocol income simultaneously. No timeline, no selection criteria, no minimum external representation, no conflict of interest framework. Fire will be directing funds towards dApps and asset issuers. If the board is predominantly foundation aligned from the start, the risk of capital flowing towards foundation adjacent projects over the broader builder ecosystem is real, even without any bad intent. It's hard to ignore the voices of your largest investors and those you perceive as offering the best opportunities. The community deserves to know who is sitting on this board before they vote to give it control of network revenues, not after it's already operational. A concrete board composition plan with seats explicitly reserved for independent builders and active network participants should be part of what we're voting on. All very, very sensible. I find it hard to disagree with anything that Darren has said there. Where is the Songbird plan? FIP 16 proposes 3 stages of consensus changes, a new block builder architecture, MEV capture, infrastructure, FCC integration, and signing weight overhauls. Songbird is mentioned exactly once in the entire document in the fire governance voting mechanism. There is no mention of testing any of these mechanisms on Songbird first. If the foundation has decided that Songbird's economics are too degraded to serve as a meaningful canary network testbed, then say that clearly and propose an alternative. But using Songbird as the answer to where is your canary network, while not actually using it as one for the most significant protocol changes in Flare's history, is the worst of both worlds. It gives false assurance while providing none of the actual safety net. Flare needs to either bring Songbird up to date and use it for these tests, or be honest with the community about what Songbird actually is at this point and what the plan for it is. Again, a pretty fair critique. For me, Songbird should be, again, the lower chamber of the governance house. The fact that Songbird hasn't been used for that purpose, like as much as it could be, is a question for everyone in the entire community. Like, it is time consuming and demanding to participate in governance via Songbird. It kind of should be. It's unfortunate the community hasn't raised itself to meet the challenge of doing that. But I think, Darren, a lot of the things that you're raising here were probably well worth raising in Songbird at an earlier point as well. Not just not saying that you should have raised them, but simply saying a lot of the things that you're saying here were better served to, if more people were paying attention in the community, could have asked these questions maybe earlier in Songbird. And I think I'm sympathetic to you in the sense that here you're like, this FIP has been dropped on Flare. Some of this stuff could have, and should have been potentially raised in Songbird earlier, especially when it comes to like the changes around the blockchain, what Fire is doing in terms of ordering the transactions. I mean, I would imagine that does need to be tested on Songbird first, and it's unavoidable. I'd be surprised if that's not the case, or if it's not considered to be the case. The staking changes favor incumbents with no path for new entrants. Look at the combination of effects here together. The 5xP chain weighting heavily rewards providers who already have large P chain stakes. The validator node cap increase from 200 million to 300 million benefits only those already near the cap. The 20% minimum fee floor removes the one competitive lever that smaller or newer providers could use to attract delegators away from established names. Providers who are already large get more rewards, a higher capacity ceiling, and new providers lose the ability to compete on price while trying to build their stake. There is no complementary mechanism for a new provider onboarding, no path for a new infrastructure provider to temporarily price lower while they prove themselves and build their stake. The network is about to massively expand the responsibilities of infrastructure providers while simultaneously making it structurally harder for new providers to enter. That tension needs to be addressed in the proposal, not in this proposal, not left for a future FIP. This has been a constant sort of source of consternation, I think. Bear with me one moment while I check to see if we have any comments on this stream. And if anyone wants to join, just please drop me a DM. I will let you into the stream. Bear with me. I have to do this stuff on my own, so it is what it is, unfortunately. We have 21 viewers, apparently. Okay, that's great. Let me see if I can see comments. Sal's here. Excellent. Watch your Sal. If anyone is, let me see if I can ping Iman and let him know that I'm here as well. You know what? I'll just drop a link here for people that may want to join. DM me if you want to join the space. Sal, I'm going to send this over to you. Give me a moment. And Iman. I'll send it to a few other people. Okay, let's get back to this. Sal, I sent you a link, so I mean, just accept it. And give me a shout if you're up or not. Let's continue with FI should consider a rebate for builders who create the MEV opportunities. This one isn't in the proposal at all, and I think it should be. FI will capture MEV from DEX arbitrage, liquidations, JIT, liquidity, and post-trade arbitrage. All of that MEV only exists because builders deployed and maintained the contracts that created those opportunities. A DEX generating arbitrage MEV exists only because someone built it and bootstrapped its liquidity. A lending protocol generating liquidation MEV exists because someone built the liquidation engine and integrated the price feeds. Right now, the proposal captures 100% of that value into FIRE to be used for their discretion. The structured MEV rebate mechanism, a structured MEV rebate mechanism, even 10 to 20% of MEV captured from interactions with a specific contract going back to the contract's deployer would fundamentally change what it means to build on Flare. Instead of MEV being something that happens to your protocol, it becomes a revenue stream from your protocol. No other network does this at the network level, and Flare is uniquely positioned to implement it precisely because of the controlled block builder architecture being proposed here. I'm all about aligning incentive structures so that that natural inclination of all parts of the ecosystem is to help each other grow. And I think this or an idea like it would go a long way to doing that in an automated way. Leaving out FIP F16 is a missed opportunity. Okay, so I think my understanding of this, Darren, is that the MEV is going to provide a revenue stream, but it's just not going to backdate it and rebate existing dApps. That's the way I read it. So if you're saying that the existing dApp providers should be given a chunk of the MEV that's aggregated, well, you had rewards and incentives already, didn't you? So being devil's advocate, I would say, I don't know. I don't think it should be historically aimed back at any particular dApp. That being said, whatever metrics are applied by FIRE for rewards should consider existing dApps. So, yeah, a rebate No, but moving forward, all dApps, whether they're existing or new, should probably be considered. So I hope that clears my position on that. Iman, see if I can add to the page.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're a little bit quiet, but I can hear you. How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm on the road. I'm a arborist for a state in the United States. I'm going to do some tree restoration. Anyway, I'm listening to made some good points about earlier. I can't even think right now where you were. A
Your
lot of the
volume
points you're making.
your volume is really low for me, Iman.
Okay, I'll try to fix it.
Cool. I got a little bit of what Iman's saying. He's in transit at the moment. Sal, if you've got the link, just jump in as well. Let me just carry on. The management group needs a scope ceiling. The management group was introduced in FIP 0.2 with a narrow mandate around policing FTSO data provider conduct. Through FIP 08, 11, 12, and 14, its responsibilities have expanded steadily. FIP 16 now proposes to give its veto power over to MEV capture methodology changes via a rejection-based votes. The management group is not elected by the broad FLR community. It's composed of FTSO data providers who self-select in by meeting participation criteria, with the Flair Foundation retaining the right to add and remove members. Using this body as a governance mechanism for decisions is significant, as MEV strategy is a centralization of decision making that doesn't need to keep growing. Every time its remit expands, the set of decisions that ordinary Flare token holders have real input on shrinks. FIT 116 should define a ceiling for the management group authority or propose a more representative body for decisions at this scale. Again, agree. I think that this is perfectly reasonable critique. I would say, though, you just got to move forward with things. So you just have to push forward, and this stuff one would hope, and look, the reality is you just gotta hope at this stage, and you vote with your feet if you don't like it. We recognize it has to be more decentralized. It has to have representatives from all of the participants in the network to a greater or lesser extent. It can't just be Flare, and it certainly can't just be like the management group. So I agree with that, but you just have to move forward and work it out. How do you work it out is the question. And I think this is where Songbird needs to come back into the fold, right? The suggestions around the overall governance and structure of both of these networks should ultimately start with Songbird, I would imagine. I don't know if that's just a pipe dream and things move forward. I agree with Darren. We need better participation, broader participation of individuals that are basically selected by and for and by the community, not just Flare Labs and not just this fire entity. But how do we get there? Let me just check in on the stream. Sal, are you
Yeah,
there?
Can you hear me now?
can you hear me?
I can hear both of you guys.
There's some echo going on.
Yeah.
Let me.
Okay. I'm gonna just go ahead. I'm gonna bow out for now because it must be me. Thanks.
Okay, Iman. Sal, do you want to?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. There's no.
All right, that's better. Yeah, I think it was probably Iman on, but hopefully you can get that fixed and jump back on. Look, I'm jumping in as a complete idiot, so I'm going to ask dumb questions and you're going to have to deal with it. but my interest is primarily around the governorship. So I get what you're saying with you got to move forward, but I'm also pretty untrusting of people trying to push for speedy governance decisions, which can later on really hurt people. So and just before you, you know a lot more about this than I do, so I'm not coming in here attacking anything. I'm just coming in here with principal ideas about how things are typically governed and trying to get the best for the community. Ultimately, that's what we all want, right? We all want to have the best for the community. So I am worried that, like, if you try and push these things through, I prefer friction. So I first of all, my first question is, why do you want to have this done so quickly?
It's not necessarily making it. How quickly it gets delivered is gonna be slow. It's a phased approach, right? There's none of this is gonna happen quickly, and this is my kind of immediate response to you is, no matter how fast you think this stuff moves, it moves painstakingly slowly. I don't think there's a easy way of delivering everything in this proposal. How long do you think it will take? Like, what's your how long do you think this will take after being voted on in the 7th or by the 17th of April? Like, how long do you think it will take?
You know, I would imagine, without, again, coming from it as a purely theoretical, no real understanding of how the community has worked in the past, but having an understanding of how these processes work for other protocols, namely Bitcoin. I would say that, like, yeah, you could expect 2 years before something is ratified. At least, I mean, if you have a look at what's been happening on Bitcoin, I don't know if it's
The voting is one thing, and that's ratification. Yeah, the
right.
actual rolling it out and building it. Flare, by the way, is notorious for anyone that's watching. Is notorious for never giving deadlines, and I think that's the right thing.
Yeah,
Things always take way longer than you think to
yeah.
implement, and
I agree with the approach of not deadlining stuff that's this important. And again, I can't keep saying this enough, as someone who is coming at this without any real idea of how Flare has worked in the past. I've got a chat GPT page in front of me looking at how Flare is governed. And again, from what I'm understanding, it's talking about there's some on-chain mechanisms, there's token holder participation, and there's foundation-led coordination. So you have the trivector, which is very common inside governance. I mean, if you have to even look at the US Constitution, you have the three bodies of checks and balances. And you have three because it's an odd number, because you have to arrive at a decision. But again, the key thing is, what are those on-chain mechanisms? How is the token holder participation done? Is it like some kind of proportional representation? Again, not using the correct terms probably. And foundation led, what does that mean? What does that mean? Is that veto? Again, so these are the kind of questions that I have. I don't expect you to have all the answers to them, and I am trying to do my own research.
Yeah, there's a lot. Look, it's all the information is available. Like, to some of the things that you've said, is generally weighted by the token, right? Here's the interesting thing about Flare. It has two chains, Songbird and Flare. Songbird was supposed to be the lower house of a bicameral governance structure. So you have a lower house and an upper
Yeah,
house. The lower house is Songbird, the upper house is Flare. And Flare Foundation, it essentially writes the improvement processes, the FIPS, Flare Improvement Process, or the SIP, Songbird Improvement Process. Now, I actually checked this because I seem to remember, and I may be wrong, but I seem to remember that anyone could potentially raise a SIP. But I just went through Chat GPT and Claude, and it says that's not the case. The whole point of the lower chamber of the House is that this is where the noise occurs in governance. This is where the broad number of suggestions should be raised. This is where the details of some of the not the details necessarily, but let's say the broad arc of the things that we want to change in the network go through Songbird. They're tested on Songbird, on the Canary network, with real value. and only then should they pass on to Flare. Now, what's happened is the upper house being Flare. What's happened is that we've had things like F assets, we've had a whole load of other innovations arrive, like Flare smart accounts, and now we're seeing confidential compute, which, as far as I know, and like not all of these have been tested. F assets were tested on Songbird. I was there for that, but the rest of this stuff isn't being tested on Songbird. And look, you can say what you like about that. If the liquidity doesn't exist to game theoretically test something on Songbird to the point that it's even worth testing, because on Flare the liquidity is so completely different, there's so much more of it. I get that, but when it comes to governance, I think this is where Songbird probably has been let down a little bit, and where it could be revived specifically by something that's alluded to in this FIP, but not necessarily elaborated in any meaningful way, as per Darren's tweet and his reaction to it. And I take Darren very seriously, by the way.
So I've got a
Songbird
couple.
may be able to take up its place in the governance process, but you know what? That depends on the goddamn community jumping in and doing a little bit more about openly discussing what they're doing, what they think, and how things should move forward. And
So,
man,
so
frankly, I'm simply not seeing that anywhere.
right. So just getting the tilde again, these are just things that I'm finding for the purpose of the conversation. You tell me if they are worth considering or not. But I just for the sake of this conversation. So I did a quick prompt to try and find out, like, if have there been any issues, and basically what I'm getting is that there was early stage centralization. These are criticisms of the governance so far. There was early stage centralization, heavy influence from foundation core team, uneven.
Any
No. Let me finish the list. And then you can come in, because I think for the purpose of the conversation, it's worth raising the criticisms so that then you can tell us what you think about them. Okay. So early stage centralization, heavy influence from foundation core team, uneven real world voting power, past distribution, growth phase controversies. Now that's all checkpointed. But importantly, Flare's governance is still considered progressively centralizing, meaning that these problems are expected to reduce over time. Now, what I want from you is that what you're seeing?
Okay, so for the first bullet, all projects are centralized when they start.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of.
Agreed.
Okay. With Flare, I think one of the reasons I was attracted to Flare Network in the first place is because of the depth of consideration given to what it actually means to be decentralized, and what it means in terms of not just in terms of governance and validation of transactions, but within their DNA, what it means to be decentralized. So, confiscation proof, those kinds of things, right? So, I mean, the first bullet point that you raised to say that everyone has that problem. What was the
Agreed.
second?
So the second point was heavy influence from foundation core team. That could tie in, but what's your feeling on that consideration?
It always starts very centralized. What's the nature of that influence right now? Probably still high, but I would say, is it benign, or is it beneficial to the network, or is it not? And so far, I would imagine the vast majority of people would say it has been beneficial. These are, if you like, they're benign dictators for the time being.
Right. I just did a little bit more on that, and one of the things I've asked AI is, what has Flare community been doing to address these four? The other two, just for completeness,
yeah, what are they?
The other two was uneven real world voting power and path distribution stroke growth phase controversies. Now let's put those on hold for a second.
No. Let me address.
Oh yeah, you want to address it? Go away. Yeah, go right ahead.
Because that's a really good one. Flare, again, when you put decentralization into your DNA, the one problem they were trying to tackle is, how do you distribute this token? token distribution is the bugbear of any asset issuance, right? No one ever gets this right.
Yeah.
Like no one, and including Bitcoin. And I mean, it pisses me off when Bitcoin maximum. I was there 2010.
Well, look, it's the early adopters in their
Mining,
case.
yeah. Like you'll never get a perfect distribution, but what you do is look at what effort has been made to make the distribution as fair as possible. And at the time, Flare's distribution of Songbird and Flare was the largest distribution of any digital asset. Incredibly complicated, massively difficult to coordinate. Imagine going to all of these exchanges and getting them to participate. They found that like the time and effort that it takes to do that is colossal. And I don't think anyone should really. The crazy thing was, and I still remember this, like people who were being given Flare simply because they held XRP were still pissed off at the distribution. You're being given something for nothing because of the way the Flare distributed it is like if you had an XRP address, you can participate in the Flare distribution. And yet there were still people in throughout that process who, like for years on end, were bitter about the distribution of Flare. So there's no way of ever getting it right. It was the largest, most complicated digital asset issuance in history at that time, and ultimately it was fucking successful, right? So that's point 4 dealt with as far as I'm concerned. What was point 3?
Point 3. Let's have a look. Point 3 was uneven real world voting power. Point 4 was past distribution growth base.
We should forget that. Uneven voting power.
So I can give you a bit more info on how that has transpired, at least in this uneducated prompting. So when we said uneven real world voting power, so apparently what Flare is trying to do to handle this is with delegation and staking systems, power is tied to wrapped Flare and staked Flare. Users can delegate to validators, data providers, and what this is supposed to do is help small holders participate indirectly, and voting influence can scale with economic state. So that's one aspect. And again, you can tell me about this later. B, vote power caps, FTSO system to prevent dominance by large actors. What they've done is they've put FTSO rewards and influence systems, which include things like caps on individual provider influence. An example is like earlier governance, reduced vote power concentration, lowering caps on Songbird FTSO providers to prevent collusion risk. Okay, and just to finish that off before I let you go on, the C is the management group structure. Certain governance responsibilities are delegated to selected data providers, FTSO participants. This distributes operational governance away from a single entity and into a wider validator ecosystem. There is a remaining issue. It says wealth concentration still is voting influence. So like POS systems. So there was quite a lot there. So if you want me to repeat any of it, let me know.
I mean, there's a lot, man. This is why it goes. It's probably better to go from point by point. But look, I'm going to wave a hand over a lot of this stuff, right? So if
what's your feeling on, because what I'm getting from you and what I think I'm getting as well, without being having spent zero time on this, but with the little research that I've done, is that I'm seeing good faith actors here. People are actually really trying hard to fix the problem. Is that what you're seeing?
I mean, that's demonstrated. You don't have to take my word for it. You have to look at the TVL, the total value locked in the chain.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay, the price of the token as well is reflective of this, although it's at near all-time lows, right? The reality is the infrastructure being used? Who's using it? And the metric that you use to measure that is total value locked. My experience has been, and I'm an infrastructure provider, digital dynamics, right? Like John Flair community, I'm helping him out. My experience has been that if you act in good faith with the rest of the community, they reciprocate the good faith. Now, day one for me, I can say when Hugo and the team at Flair were describing what they were doing and how they were doing it, it was a no-brainer for me, right? I'm from a financial background, I'm from a banking technology background, and what they were doing was immediately for me is a no-brainer. It's just like XRP and Bitcoin. So the next step is, okay, are they competent? Are they intelligent? Are they good faith actors? Ticking all of those goddamn boxes. Are they competent? Yeah, like flipping out, look what's been created. And when you take the step of actually becoming an infrastructure provider and move one level kind of nearer to what's going on in the network in terms of understanding it and how it works and how it operates, all that did is reinforce for me that, yeah, there's a few things that there are some really difficult things that you just cannot overcome easily, right? But you can have a stab at making a resilient kind of solution for them. And FTSO is one of them, like time series Oracle. How do you get real price data? Well, the tricky thing is like, what is the goddamn price of something, right? It's value is subjective. Price is determined on a market. They are different things. But how do you ensure that you got a valid price going back to the blockchain? The way the FTSO protocol works for me is kind of like there is no better solution than that. That it may not be perfect, and there are some glitches in it. Like if you have everyone proposing prices and they all propose, like you have a chorus of people all proposing the same price, that's actually what you want if it reflects reality, except you don't want that if they are just working in collusion with each other. Like these are really fundamentally fucking difficult problems to solve. So when Flair was doing it and the way they were doing it, that just made me very bullish on, yeah, these aren't idiots setting up blockchains and writing smart contracts. That they are people who are serious actors who are developing an alternative financial system. That's the way I took it. And there's been nothing from my experience to date to deviate away from that.
So I asked, this is kind of interesting. I asked for some generic metrics, objective figures, and heuristics, more value kind of sentiments. I'm not going to go through it because it just gave so much. It's going to be too much. And also, I'm not in a position to even comment on it. But they did give me some interesting food for thought, which is if you want a compact evaluation framework, strong decentralization looks like low validator and delegation concentration, high community proposal origin, foundation not required for quorum, Songbird has its independent experimentation impact, governance participation is broad, not whale dominated. And to give you the complete picture of what weak decentralization looks like is few entities control most voting power, foundation drives most proposals, community mostly reacts rather than initiates, Songbird is mostly a controlled staging environment. So this is interesting to your point, as you said, whether or not is Songbird going to step up? Because if it's going to be meaningful and not just a symbolic kind of test net, then we do really require Songbird to be having more of a involvement, participation. So what's your feeling on that?
Look, and you missed out other, like decentralization, defining it is incredibly difficult, and in the end it ends up being subjective. Like there are some subjective elements.
Yeah, it's qualitative, it's not quantitative. But I mean, again, these are just trying to get a framework around it so that we don't go into.
No, a quantitative measure is like, where the hell are all your servers?
Yeah.
Right? Are they geographically dispersed? Like that's
they're objectively verifiable.
But if they're all owned by the same beneficiary owner, who gives a shit? Like these are nuances, the difficulty of what
Well,
it really
that does come back to what we said: low validator delegation concentration. So again, I don't want to go. I don't know what the level is here that we want to go into. What we're looking for is like a broad.
look. In the end, is it sufficiently decentralized for your risk appetite?
Mm.
That's what a state actor needs to ask. That's what an individual needs to ask.
Yeah.
The level of decentralization sufficient for your risk appetite. Okay.
Right.
For me, the highest risk is putting your goddamn money in a bank, right?
Right now.
That's where it can be seized day one, tomorrow, sanction, goodbye. Yeah. I'm waiting 10 days for a payment to arrive. Like, give me a
and getting charged for the privilege.
And getting charged for the privilege. Like, okay, so my risk appetite for concentration risk and counterparty risk is incredibly low. This is why I only leave liabilities in the bank. Now, when it comes to assessing a network, a distributed ledger technology, man, there's a ton of criteria, and I'm sorry, you can't listen to anyone else. Right? You got to grapple with that situation on your own terms and educate yourself on it. I maintain Flare is one of the most decentralized networks that exists today. And the decentralization, because it's enshrined, the protocols benefit directly from the security afforded by that decentralization. So things like data connector, attestation for on-chain data, all of that is incredibly decentralized.
Let's go back to what you're talking about, Songbird, because for me, that's like, again, this is the test net, but it's not just a test net.
Not a test net. Get this straight. Songbird is a canary network, not a test
canary,
network.
Yes.
What's the difference? There's real money, real value on a canary network. A test net uses infinite bullshit tokens. Anyone can monkey around and whatever with a token, and it has zero value. Songbird has a value that can be exchanged for other assets, for other fiat currencies, other cryptocurrencies, right? So it has real value. That's why you have a canary network. Why do you have that? It's to test game theoretic attack vectors. Is to incentivize game theoretic attack vectors on your network, because that is the best way of identifying what those attack vectors are, mitigating them before you deliver larger value on the mainnet. It's a bug bounty on steroids. That's the purpose of a canary network.
And they have influencing power when it comes to, from what I can tell.
It doesn't necessarily need to have that, but this was an innovation of Flare, okay? Where the Songbird network was supposed to have a role in governance.
Yeah.
That's an innovation, right? And when it's the lower chamber of the house, that would mean that the community should have the ability, I would have thought, to really easily raise a Songbird improvement process.
Yeah, a SIP. And and also Songbird test proposals, STPs.
I would like, I don't remember what the process is now, but anyone should be able to do one of those things. Like, the whole point is that it should be noisy. It should be a noisy House of Commons. It should be where we can argue shit out amongst ourselves without distracting the rest of the network, because governance can be incredibly distracting, right?
Yeah,
we were talking about this the other day. You don't want everyone to be voting on every issue every day, like, because why? Because then they're distracted from doing any kind of productive activity.
Yeah.
Right? What you want to do is to create a forum that allows for very disruptive discussions to be had without impacting the forward progress of the goddamn network, without impacting other participants of the network who are simply trying to create value for themselves and the rest of the participants, whether directly or indirectly.
No, and we've seen the detrimental effects of that. At least I've seen it inside Bitcoin, where it just becomes a drama. Bips lead to all kinds of crazy things, and forks and the rest of it. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There should be a level of governance that isn't just could be used as a denial of service, essentially. Like
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just distracting and causes friction, right? If you have if you open the governance to everyone at every level, you don't govern anything at all. Nothing gets delivered. It just becomes a circle jerk. So the purpose of flipping Songbird, what I thought was powerful about it, as the lower chamber of a bicameral flipping governance system, was that that's where the noise occurs. That's where the arguments are had. That's where the community should be engaging. Now we
so
just haven't seen that,
yeah,
unfortunately.
so this is what I was going to say. Like, as for that, for heuristically to be able to judge Songbird, and this is a question for you, is that if you know, so if it's so it's not just the sandbox, as you said, it's not just the test net. It's actually a canary.
Yeah,
And
real
it
value.
says here, it should regularly influence Flare and include independent actors. That's what this is telling me a healthy canary decentralization looks like. Now,
Yeah.
is that what you're seeing?
Not at the moment, but I'm
Okay,
hoping like what this FIP 16 does is for the first time in quite a while, it does open an opportunity for that to be the case. But you know
okay.
what? I would throw this back at everyone in the flipping flat community. If you want
Yeah, no,
soul,
no. I mean, it is. I mean, I'm just using you because you're online and you're talking. I mean,
yeah.
this is an open question. Yeah, it's an open question for everyone. And again, I'm coming at this as someone who's not an expert, especially not with Flair, but I have some idea of principles that need to be put in place. And it seems to me that, yeah, I would imagine that a healthy canary decentralization does look like it would regularly influence Flair, and it would include independent actors. It's probably missing a whole bunch of other things as well, but it's a good
well,
place to start the conversation.
I would say like the network is the network's value is derived by the different participants that can generate economic activity. There are different groups and categories of participants. They're all valid to greater, lesser extents at different times. Um, they need to be involved. Like they need to be involved in the decision making process. They need to be involved in governance. Who has input into decisions?
Mm.
Who makes the decisions? And who's accountable for those decisions once they've been made? Like basic governance. It needs to be there needs to be representation from the various participants in the network. It can't all just be one group. We can't have a Schmittian exception group of participants where they calls all the goddamn shots. And I don't think there's any intent to make that happen, by the way. I think we're like, again, if there's one network that's keenly aware of the problems of having a single group capture the network, not even a single group, but singular intents capture the network. It's Flare, right? So it is this community more so than any other, and I can say that fucking hand on heart after being in Bitcoin since 2010 and being in this community professionally since 2019. So there's no other fucking network that puts decentralization at its core. But I think we need to flip in and revisit some of those principles again. And we need to look at how the structure that we created with Songbird, the Canary network with real value, can begin to play its real role in governance now.
Yeah, I mean, again, just going back to I don't take much of this too seriously, but I'm getting AI to just rate. First of all, there's heuristics metrics. Again, this is not scientific, so don't read too much into it. It's just a bit of fun. But out of the top five, this little test that I did with AI is ranking Ethereum as number one with 85 to 90 points. And then the more interesting conversation is why it ranks number one and trade off. And I'm going to just quickly rattle these through. I'm not going to
Yeah,
go through all of them.
because
Yeah,
like
okay.
what Ethereum to me is the archetypal non-decentralized network.
Okay, so this is great. This is great. So let me go through it, and then you can take it apart. Okay. So why it ranks number one? It says here extremely distributed validator set, hundreds of thousands via staking, no formal on-chain voting, reduces whale capture risk, governance happens through community consensus, dev coordination, EIPs. Social layer. Now, the trade off is slower and messier decision making. Off chain governance can feel opaque. The strongest example of credible neutrality plus decentralization. Now, you want to take that apart?
I mean, where do you start, man? Where do you even start?
I mean, I'm surprised it's putting Ethereum at the top, even with my limited knowledge. I would not.
I'm not because, like, okay, like. Okay, no, let's try and break this down, right? From its inception, who was involved in the creation of this goddamn thing? Okay, we know who they were, right? So we know it had a regulatory free pass. We know it had lubing, flipping, lubricating, all sorts of bullshit. Probably a load of political actors, large holders. With large stakes. So what is that AI telling you? They're because you've got a million validators, that makes it decentralized.
It's not telling you about the ownership of those validators.
Who is the beneficiary owner chain of those? And to what degree do they have? It's not necessarily just the fact that they're beneficiary owners, but to what degree do their interests align in subverting the network for themselves?
And we know we know it's had problems.
High, right? It's pretty high.
Yeah, well, we know it's rolled back. So like
that's the other part. Okay, the fact that you can even roll back the goddamn network.
It's crazy.
For sure. For sure. Okay,
but I mean, I'm in agree again. I totally agree with you. I think AI just totally got that wrong. I would never have put that. Here's a more interesting one.
Very superficial metrics to arrive at a decision that's going to be massively misguided.
Yeah, agreed. But it's just for fun. It's for conversation purposes. We can have some fun with it.
Look again. How ultimately this is a bit like money, but like at the end of the day, your risk appetite for decentralization should dictate which network you decide to deploy on. Because if you really think Ethereum is fantastic and it's kind of you're willing to take on the risk of holding Ethereum with all of the holders and validators that it has, at the end of the day, it's your decision, man. I would say choose your metrics very carefully. For me, I can tell you what some of my metrics are. Okay, the protocol itself, how does that work? How does that reach consensus? I'm not a fan of proof of work. Okay, proof of work ends up with whoever has the most flipping hardware is the winner. So I'm not a fan, and Satoshi said that, for God's sake. So I'm not a fan of proof of work. So we have proof of stake. Proof of stake in its ordinary form, whoever has the most money wins. Right? That's just the reality of proof of stake, right? Now, when it comes to the consensus mechanism of Flare, which is Snowman ++ based on Avalanche, right? It's weighted, capped proof of stake. It's kind of, again, not the best solution, but show me a better one. It's still Byzantine fault tolerant, okay? Unlike XRP with the UNL, but as a Flare entity, you have to run a Ripple node. So people who run Flare infrastructure have some basic understanding of how XRP works, right?
Yeah.
I have to say, man, like I don't want to touch the UNL. When I first set up our provider, I was monkeying around with, as you know, I was monkeying around with the UNL and just kind of like trying to change it. Wasn't great experience. Let me put it
it's not.
I'm not saying that XRP is centralized. I am not. I'm saying for me, it's sufficiently decentralized. Like absolutely sufficiently decentralized. But could it be more decentralized and could it be made simpler? Yeah, 100%.
I mean, you nailed it. It's the complexity that's the barrier to entry. It's not like it's not. I mean, like one of the things of running even a Bitcoin miner, it's trivial now. Okay, but like you try.
It's a piss to run, right?
Yeah,
Like, and that's great. But the problem is, you end up creating an industry around ASICs and hash rate.
Well, you got those one-time miners now, haven't you? Got the lottery ticket miners. Hilarious. I love them. But okay, let's move on. Let's move on a bit. Okay, so let's go to
stick to it. Stick to that. Because I don't think we addressed it. But you rattled out so many goddamn points. It's hard to address.
I mean, the biggest things here is that it's claimed that there's hundreds of thousands via staking. There's claim to a distributed validator set. But as you said correctly, who owns those validators? Like, where is the...
And there's also, forgot to mention the cost of entry, which is 32 ETH.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Okay, right. So with Bitcoin, you can do it with your laptop. You're not going to get very far if you do that, but you can set up a node at least and validate the algorithm that's being used by whoever is the correct one. Fine. So as a node valid operator, want of a better term, you're not going to participate in the consensus process, but at least you can validate the consensus process.
Exactly.
For what it's worth, by the way, for whatever that's worth. Okay, for Ethereum, you got to put down 32 goddamn ETH.
It's crazy.
Give me a break. Like, and if there's anyone that can flip in, tell me. Like, yeah, you can consolidate mining and like get a bunch of people involved.
Well, this one was the
ETH.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with you. That's a huge barrier.
Operation. It's a money laundering operation.
It's a huge barrier to entry. But here, okay, so the other ones I think we pretty much covered, but there's the bit that caught me here, which is I think you might have something to say about off-chain governance can feel opaque. No shit.
No shit.
I mean, what the hell? I mean, to me, that's and it calls it a trade-off, but I'm like, come on, dude. So, I mean, we're given the kind of technology that exists now and the different layers and protocols and smart contracts and what have you. I just feel like if you're doing whatever off-chain governance you're doing, better be trivial. It will be really trivial, but yeah. So that was Ethereum. Let's go to Polkadot, because this is interesting. It says one of the most advanced on-chain governance systems. And so what does that look like? There's referenda, there's conviction voting, there's delegation, and the community can propose and pass changes. So the reason that it's decided that Polkadot is good is because of exactly the reason that Ethereum is not good, right? It's basically said on-chain governance.
I don't know Polkadot inside out by any stretch of the imagination. No. I did do some research into them, and I did talk to a few of the people who are heavily invested in it, and it seems reasonable. Like, again, does it meet my bar for decentralization? I would say probably, but there are other reasons why I don't invest.
I mean, again, I'm not an expert on it, but what stood out to me is that the reason that Polkadot scored high is precisely the reason that Ethereum scored low. All right, so that's worth noting. Yeah, that's remarkable.
So try and crystallize decentralization, at least from your perspective.
So I mean, look, just going from what it said here at the beginning, it's a good place to start. Like, let me just bring it up, rather than me trying to hash a thing. Let's see what good decentralization was, because yeah, I mean, it's different things to different people, but there are some things that we can use. Hold on, let me finish this, and then we can come back and do the other one, because this is I like this comparison, even though we're not expert with the protocols. Let's just see where this goes. So, as we said, Ethereum, we both agree, absolute nonsense in its evaluation. And from my point of view, I like on-chain governance systems. I like to be able to put those kinds of features like referenda, conviction voting, delegation. All sounds good to me if you can do it on chain. So there's accountability and transparency. I like that. So so that's okay. That's interesting. Now the next one it says is Avalanche, and again it is going with strong validator decentralization, governance tied to staking participation, less foundation dominance than many newer chains, and the trade-offs: governance is less active or formal than Polkadot, still somewhat validator influenced. Okay, fine, let's accept that. And let's go finally to Flare. Flare came out of this list of 5, Flare came number 4. Now, this will be interesting. And Solana came at last.
Just read the list out, please.
Okay,
one
so
by one.
So Ethereum is scored between 85 and 90. Polkadot scored 80 to 88. Avalanche got 70 to 78. And Flare got 56 to 73, which is a really big spread, by the way. And there's reasoning for that. So this is its reasoning for that. Why it places here? Well, it says strong governance architecture, unique advantage via Songbird. So we recognize this Songbird's importance.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
look, you have to give AI a little bit of credit,
which is why I think you have that big discrepancy in the why you have that big spread. All the other ones have got a spread around about 5 or 8 points. This has got a spread around about 20 points. Yeah. So let me just continue with that. At least it recognized the unique advantage that Songbird plays. Real world testing layer for governance, active move toward decentralization. Now, it didn't say trade-offs. It said in here, it says why it holds back. And this is good. This is fun. It says foundation still drives most proposals. We're aware of that. Voting power still somewhat concentrated. We're aware of that. And governance participation is still maturing. So I don't think those are necessarily bad things. Like, these are things that, in your opinion, if I'm not correct, if I'm not mistaken, don't want to put words in your mouth, but in your opinion, these are all things that you said these are improving, right?
Yeah.
More or less. Yeah, and it says high potential, not fully realized.
Yeah, 100%. Like,
okay, so it's not that dumb to do something like this. So, do you want me to bother with Solana?
No, fuck that. Solana's gay and fake.
So that, I mean, this is the thing from my perspective, coming in and doing your own research. There's obviously with this kind of stuff, it's hours and hours and hours, and there is no trust. There's only verify. So you end up having to go through with this. So no, we got AI now, which we didn't really have before. But of course, it's only as good as what you know. If you put in shit, you're going to get shit out. So I think one of the things that is going to be really useful going forward, and you mentioned that Flare is, the community is using AI in various ways, maybe for some of it for coding. I think some of it for just doing this kind of analysis is really useful, especially for trying to steel man the case.
100%. Let me just read this out. Because like the Flare MEV thing, if there's one thing that's radical about this FIP, is the MEV part of it. And let me just read this briefly. Flare proposes protocol level MEV capture and 40% inflation cut in Flare tokenomics overhaul. Flare Networks published a governance proposal to capture maximal extractable value at the protocol level and redirect it from external searchers to builders and the network itself. The plan would make Flare one of the first layer 1 blockchains to capture MEV natively rather than letting it flow to specialized third-party actors. Okay, I mean, that's really important, right? Do you understand what that is? Like, for me, this is the most radical part of this FIP, is the MEV, the redirection of MEV back into the goddamn network rather than to the hands of private entities who do not have necessarily their interests aligned with the rest of the network. That's unique, right? As far as
do idiot's version of why that's I don't know. I haven't read the FIP. So what does that mean? Why is that even a thing?
Okay, so let me. I'll bring up the FIP because they put their own numbers into this, right?
What
So
was the FIP, by the what number FIP was it?
FIP 16.
Okay. What I've got here is, and again, this you do not trust this, but again, just to give you a heads up, what I've got from it is that there's a focus on restructuring tokenomics. The key changes are reduction in inflation from 5% to 3%, shift rewards from inflation to real network revenue. Again, you might have to describe what that means because I don't know what that means. Introduce mechanisms that could make flare deflationary over time. That's fine. This is a good example of governance directly controlling monetary policy and moving towards a more sustainable economic model.
All right, so let's just go through this one more time. Can you see are you watching the stream? Yeah,
I'm watching it on my mobile, but like,
okay,
yeah.
all right, I'll read it out, okay? Because this is really the meat and potatoes of this proposal, right? Capturing maximal extractable value for ecosystems benefit. Who wrote these, by the way? It's capturing the maximal extractable value for the ecosystem's benefit. Come on, man. Like, use better AI. Is Quantic using AI to write this? Maximal extractable, sorry, Quantic. I love you. Maximal extractable value, MEV, represents the potential profit available to actors who control the sequencing of transaction. MEV is traditionally harvested by validators and their collaborators, effectively benefiting at the expense of other network participants. Okay, so fundamentally, step back. When you see transactions coming in and you're validating, structuring, and ordering these before you broadcast them out to everyone else to reach consensus, if you're in that position, you have an edge. You can front run shit, you can arbitrate shit, you can take benefit of all sorts of different financial transactions, because it's like you're seeing everything coming in. You're being that prime dealer in a weird way. You see all of these transactions coming in and you don't just settle them, you decide how they get settled. The power of settling those different transactions gives you the ability to extract value from them. And look, this is what flares say. Take this with a huge pinch of salt, as they say themselves. On blockchains with high economic activity, MEV is a vast source of revenue for those engaged in extracting it. Although perfectly reliable data is difficult to source, available market indicators allow us to establish reasonable estimates for the annual value of MEV capture. And look, I don't know where they come by these numbers, but it sounds fairly reasonable to me from what I understand. Okay, Ethereum, 200 million to 500 million USD annually captured through MEV operations. These are validators ordering transactions in a way that profits them. Okay, 2 to 500 million. Solana, 500 million to 1 billion. Who would have thought on Solana that the MEV bots were winning? Who would have thought? Arbitrum, 10 to 30 million, not much. Base 200 to 300 million. Now, look, I would say drop those numbers by an order of magnitude. Call it 20 to 50 million on Ethereum, 5 to 10 million on Arbitrum. What does it look like on Flare to capture that value and put it back into the network? Have an entity that actually puts the goddamn value back into the network.
So what this is interesting, because what that says with respect to this maximum extractable value and basically redirecting it to the network via buyer. Now, what it says here is why this matters, because MEV profits go to the ecosystem rather than the insiders. and
Correct.
this can be a massive source of revenue.
Yeah.
But in order to accomplish that, there is a a trade-off, which is that it is a move towards centralized block production.
Yes. Yeah.
One entity may control transaction ordering, but now, so one entity may do that, but is it possible that that one entity again has governance by the many?
It's interesting, right? Like weird how the centralization and decentralization works, because you could point and say, look, if it's the Flare Labs, which initially
Yeah,
will be doing this, if it's just them, then it's pretty damn centralized,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
There are still things you can do to at least keep them honest, but on other metrics. So it's not necessarily that they're going to screw everyone over.
No,
It's
but it
rather,
can that be programmable? Can it?
it
Can you
can
have
be, yeah,
like?
it can be, and that's also been suggested. But and I think that's ultimately where this is heading. But you can't make these. If you to discuss all of these changes, you'll be here for the next 10 years.
Yeah,
You
agreed.
have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
have forward progress, knowing what the target looks like, and it's a phased deliverable like any other flipping complicated deployment that isn't atrophied through the governance process itself. You just have to move forward. You're going to have a bit of trust. Here's the paradox of that situation, right? But the flip side of this is, okay, what are the biggest counterparty risks for Flare holders at the moment? It's kind of like, if this goes through, it would be the fact that Flare Labs, something happens to Flare Labs, right? That's the risk, the way that I would see it. If I'm asking someone to invest 100 billion into, or 1 billion, 1 million, 100 million into fucking Flare, like, I would be telling them, where is your risk profile or what's going on with the introduction of this FIP? And Flare Labs right now is going to be a pretty big risk factor if this FIP gets implemented. Is that necessarily a bad thing, or can you stomach the risk, and can you hedge it, and can you mitigate it? Those are the questions you'd be asking, because ultimately this is extremely valuable. This is the radical part of this proposal, which again, I am not aware of anyone else doing anything similar to this. So yeah, is it going to? It has to be decentralized in the end, and the target state should like some kind of DApp, and maybe we can vote as a community over the parameters or the metrics or the version of the DApp that's used for this. All of those are valid options, but I think moving forward right now, you just got to run with this, because implementing this, even if Flare do a really bad job of it and steal 50% of the MEV that's generated for their pet projects and their adjacent communities, even if they're corrupt actors as fuck, the other 50% would be amazingly beneficial for the rest of the community.
Well, I mean, yeah, it remains to be seen. But again, it says here. I mean, what's the MEV plus block building potential move forward? Single builder system could concentrate control over transaction ordering and value extraction, but it's more concerned with that FIP16 is extremely complex. Average voter cannot fully evaluate it. And so this does have a trade-off
Welcome to
against.
real life in anything. The average voter can barely understand anything. So,
Yeah, I
like,
know, but
what?
yeah, no,
This,
I know,
this,
but I'm just putting it out there. Like this sort of like again, I'm not even going to pretend I understand the full implications of this, but it's always a good idea that when you don't understand something fully, that you don't completely engage with
you
it
should be
either.
asking questions for sure. I mean, 100%.
But like as I said, this stuff it's so they got so this BIP, it's got a whole bunch of stuff in it, right? So I guess there's going to be like a criteria prioritizing and then deciding which things to that go through, I guess. So have you?
That's exactly like this is this, despite how detailed it is, the implementation of this has not been specified at all.
At
And,
all, yeah.
and I think Darren did a great job of like highlighting that, as others have as well. And look, this is where potentially Songbird should come into the goddamn process.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
it seems to me
we have some votes on, and at least some proposals on the order of how this operation takes place. And can we do that on Songbird first? Right? Maybe we could do that, right?
sounds like
The plan, this is incredibly complicated, obviously,
Mm.
right? A huge amount of thought has gone into it, and what we're seeing is like the 1% that's been distilled for consumption as a FIP. I can only imagine how much effort has gone into the background. I think people are working in the background to figure out how, but they know to a large extent already. Flare Labs already probably knows to a large extent how they want to roll this out. But can we have some visibility of that? And can we make that visibility available on Songbird? Like those would be really beneficial, I think.
It seems to me that Songbird was precisely where you want to do this kind of work.
This kind of complexity in terms of, I mean, look, there's a lot of pressure that's going to be put on infrastructure providers. But this is, I can tell you now from reading this, it's a lot of work, man. It's going to be a lot of work. And we don't know what's going to happen to the sizes of the tech. Like, do we need to increase compute network, whatever? That will eventually 100%. But I think this is not going to be simple. The orchestration of the way these changes are going to be made are going to demand attention. That's going to be like weekends and late nights for quite a lot of people. It's just that's
well,
just
I know about that.
I don't think it's going to be simple. Is it going to be worth it? 100%, because again, fucking unique. This is radical. So is it going to be worth it? Yes, but you're now going to have to drag everyone with you to kind of realize this vision.
And where are these conversations taking place? I know there's a Discord channel, and I know that obviously
I don't use the Flare Discord much. I'm just going to use this. There are different channels. There's Telegram.
But I mean the official Flare Labs. I mean, like how
there's a Flare Discord. You can just go to Flare Discord.
Yeah, I'm already on it, but
helpful. If I'm brutally honest with you, I never found Flare Discord particularly helpful. You just got to find helpful people.
Yeah, it seems to be like a weird thing.
It's not weird. It's just normal. It's fairly normal.
Well, I mean, coming from a Bitcoin background, that's weird. To me, it's like if you wanted to find out about Bitcoin, you go to certain places and you know what's going on. And I'm sure there's official channels, but like I'm with you. When I went to the Discord, I didn't particularly find that.
Go to the Flare website and read the documentation. I think if you want to discuss it, you just fire up a space and discuss it.
Forget that seems a bit ad hoc.
Discord's got, you've got to remember, they've had a lot of bullshit on there's a load of scammers that turn up on flipping Discord. The moment you write a comment, you get spammed by 50 people telling you, you need to share your private keys with me. So like Discord is what it is, whatever. I don't want to diss it. It's just, I'd rather flip and hold the stream like this and get people involved.
You don't want to Discord it.
Get a public discourse going, not a private one. Like any monkey can set up a Telegram channel and invite their fucking friends to it. Let's have a proper public discussion about this. I think if you want to be taken seriously, that's probably what you should be doing.
So basically, it says the main channel is Discord. There is X as well for real-time updates, dev announcements, and debates. There's a subreddit, there's a Telegram, and GitHub for technical. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty much what we're doing now. There's as I said, we're on the Discord. We had to be on the Discord because that's like where you have to go to get any kind of help outside of the Telegram. I haven't really used. I think you're on it, right?
I used all of the channels.
Yes, so this is just, again, just for the benefit of people who are maybe listening to this, there is a Discord, and there's the Flare Network community runs active servers where people discuss FTSO rewards, governance proposals, and new tech updates. There's a X, please let me finish. There's X, there's real-time updates, there's announcements and debates. There's a subreddit called Flare Networks for more casual discussions. There's a Telegram for fast-moving groups. And there's GitHub for technical issues. Yeah, you say.
Yeah, you should just go to Flare Community on YouTube. If there's one goddamn source, it's this guy, man. Like, it's John Source.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about where people discuss these things, and it looks as though it's really, really Discord. That's really where, I mean...
Yeah, they do discuss them on Discord. But even then, it's not there are different groups, right? Look, Flare Labs isn't necessarily an open entity either, right? They do their stuff and they announce what they announce.
Well, it says here it isn't just one single global unique company name. It's been a few different organizations. The most common meanings are Web3 blockchain focused engineering team, Web3 marketing and consulting agency, and smaller product dev consultancy based in London. Yeah, it's not a single entity.
Look, just go to Discord, like, for God's sake.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying there's not a single entity.
Watch out for me. I'm going to throw out some more of these goddamn videos and get involved, right? You've got questions, but I don't see anyone. Actually, we've got 61 viewers here, and no one's asked a single question at all.
That's because I've covered everything.
Come on, man.
We told people where they can go.
If we got a flipping question about this stuff, just fire away, man. I don't have the answers.
Maybe everyone's using what I'm doing. Everyone's using AI.
I don't even have the goddamn questions. But this is why it's important that people should ask them, and we should have more of these flipping.
Well, it does seem that AI does give quite a lot of good update information, but you know. That's another thing. Just learn to prompt AI about this. Like, AI is like such a. If you don't know what you're asking, you can end up with a lot of bullshit. So maybe have a RAG or something. Set up a local LLM. Train it up on the Flare.
Quantic was doing some amazing stuff with AI, and there was a stream earlier today. Like, AI isn't just about coding and building on Flare. If you set up a goddamn AI, you can ask it reasonable questions about Flare as well. And then you don't have to depend on, or at least 100% have dependence on other people telling you how something is.
I mean, it's really useful just fact checking. I mean, if you get these statements, it is kind of useful to just run it by that. And look, as you said, a lot of these terms, they are subjective. There's no one singular overarching definition of true decentralization, not that at least I've come from. It's contextual. So it's important to be able to have that kind of understanding. And yeah, AI has been good to me with respect to this stuff. But I don't trust it. Ultimately, you need to try and get a human in the loop.
No, don't trust. Just verify fucking everything and use multiple AIs to do it. Look, we've been streaming for 1 hour 28 minutes, so we've got 62 people here. So thank you for everyone that's actually watching this stream. I hope it's been of some use. But the purpose of it for me is to actually get some discourse going. Now that we have this FIP, like, how can we actually improve things by communicating and discussing them a little bit better? And engaging, really important as well for me, is like reviving Songbird as that lower house that we should be having these noisy conversations in that lower house. So and that's how it generates value, frankly. So I hope it's been helpful. If you follow me, you're going to end up with a load of political shit. So you just better be aware of that on X and on Facebook and anywhere else. For me, crypto is political. what's happening right now in the US with the US-Iran war, jurisdiction neutral banking, the way that we see the euro dollar system breaking away from, or being not breaking away, but rather being shrunk and replaced by a BRICS payment system. This is really important to me.
And Bitcoin payments for oil, right? That's
Bitcoin
formal.
payments is like, okay, it's a start, but I know where this is going to lead. And this is, again, something for where a decentralized interoperable network like Flare is about to be handed a massive opportunity. As the Eurodollar system shrinks back and the BRICS payments network comes up, you're going to need to interoperate all of these assets. And you don't want to trust anyone while you're doing that. Flare is pretty damn well placed, is all I'm going to say, for creating a jurisdiction neutral banking system, jurisdictional neutral framework for settlement. Flare is perfectly placed for that. And I'll leave it. If you want to hear more about kind of what I think of, like, these are thoughts that I've been gathering together for the last 5-10 years. These are things that I've been predicting for quite a long time with Sal as well and other people. We're not seers. We don't see into the future. We can just put bits of information together and bring some context from other very well informed individuals in terms of how we flip and decide what we should be investing in. And this is why I think Flare falls into that mandate. So do give me a follow. It's going to be political, and I may piss you off in that process. Otherwise, the final thing I'll leave you guys with. Let me see if I can play this. Tell me if you can hear it or not.
Tokenized structured notes. These are digital assets that hold a value and simultaneously earns a yield, similar to a savings account in a digital form that can be redeemed, transferred, and even used as collateral. The initial value of a TSN can be denominated in many different currencies, but will initially start in US dollars. Tokenized structured notes can be used for loyalty programs for customers and team incentives, driving increased performance and boosting sales. TSNs, or tokenized structured notes, utilize blockchain technology, and their visual representation can be bespoke, tailored to your business's color schemes and mascots. With varying rarities and unique combinations, these yield-generating assets will also feature an element of collectability on top of the core benefits. Put simply, a tokenized structured note is a fun and collectible asset that not only holds real value, but simultaneously earns for its owner and is redeemable at any time.
All right, nice one, Hoos. I'm going to probably fire up a space later, but it's going to be all things. So it's politics, crypto, arms sales. No, there's going to be a lot.
Let's do it. Let's fire up a space later. Thank you, everyone who is viewing. 64 people. Yes, tokenized structured notes. I'm working with John on that one through X Algorithmic, and watch that space, because fundamentally for me is going to be used as collateral, and I'm leaning on I'm standing on the shoulders of giants to make this one happen, as you can see. But Sal, jump into a space later. Hopefully Iman and the rest of the gang will join as well. Thank you, everyone. Don't forget, like, retweet, and share all of that bollocks. Later glitches, cryptards, and Flare Fam. I shall end this space.